Hey everybody, Mr. Regan here, and today we're going to be looking at the diagram we'll be using with our key concepts, breaking down what it looks like, and looking to make sure we understand it so we can use it on our next set of tasks. So our diagram today shows an evolutionary tree of a set of plants throughout an ancestral time. And as you notice here, we have a green algae common ancestor at the very beginning. And throughout our tree here, we have the liverworts, the moss, the fern, the pine tree, and the sunflower. And with our common ancestor, as we see its evolution throughout the evolutionary time period, we see that there are common ancestors on this evolutionary timeline that have new traits showing up over time. So at this first point here, where our liverworts and our green algae meet, we have some common ancestor where a protective cover surrounded the plant embryo, so helped to keep it safe. That common ancestor gave rise to liverworts, which then continued on, where we had a common ancestor that had plants grow from the roots towards the sun. So instead of growing out, they grew up. And from there, we had the moss species show up. That common ancestor continued on. And from here, we have ferns show up. After that, we have a common ancestor with pine trees that has the plants growing seeds on the outside. And then last but not least, we have our final species, our most recent one, with plants growing flowers and fruits like the sunflowers. So when we look at this, we see our common ancestor, we see the different species that show up in our evolutionary timeline, and we see the traits that occur at different common ancestral points. So when we look at our tasks here, we know we have to drag and drop our key vocab. So our first one, as we know, is species inherit their body structures from their ancestral population. So when we look at this diagram here, we're able to see our sunflower has inherited all of these different traits from different common ancestors throughout time. And we know that because at each of these points where we have a new species arise, that common ancestor had a new trait. So when we're looking at our question here, what evidence from the plant diagram show key concept? Well, when we look at the diagram, we see the sun inherited the ability to grow seeds from a common ancestor that it shared with the pine tree. So when we look at this, we know that the sunflower has all of these traits. The sunflower grows plants, it grows seeds. Okay, we know that it grows from the root towards the sun, hence the name sunflower. We know it has a protective cover around its embryo. It has all of these. So the sunflower inherited the ability to grow seeds from some common ancestor with the pine tree, and inherited the ability to grow from its roots toward the sun from some common ancestor with moss, and it inherited the protective cover from some common ancestor with liverworts. So these are our common ancestors that we see with all of our different species, and that's how our sunflower inherited its structures. So it's your job now to complete the rest of this where we fill in our key concepts and connect it to the diagram. If you have questions, reach out. Otherwise, good luck.